to the McInnes Marketing Minute, everybody. Welcome back, Jay.
And welcome, welcome. Where are we right now?
We are at our brand new listing at 705-445.
West 3rd, north of 4th, the Carriage House.
That's a beautiful spot, and we'll show you a few more shots of that as the video goes on.
Yes.
Most importantly, though, without even coordinating, we are matched appropriately.
A couple of 5-star restaurant waiters ready to serve.
I don't want to do it, but I think I have to. Here come the men in black.
I can definitely cut up.
Galaxy Defenders. Whoa, whoa. Anyway, to the point. Here we are talking about the 5 what-ifs in real estate right now. I'm sure a lot of you are looking at various different articles, whether it be in mainstream media, online, opinion articles, but there's so many different aspects of the market that are being talked about right now that it's almost hard, wouldn't you say, to kind of keep up and find out, one, the latest of what's going on, and two, what that actually means to the real estate market. So just because you hear this news, how does that relate to what it's going to do to the market? And so,
yeah, and as we know, as everyone out there knows, everyone picks their own points of reference that they believe is important that they're going to mold their opinions on. So I think these are the 5 most common that we hear that people are basing their opinions forward on, and what their thoughts are on everything from there.
Yeah, I think so too. So we've brought these 5 what-ifs, we're calling them, into one place. We're going to discuss what they mean and what the effect of such will actually have on the market, in a hope that we can bring it all to one place and simplify it a lot more. And I mean, I'll start off with number 1, which is interest rates. No, it's not interest rates, unemployment rates. We'll get down to that. So unemployment rates, quite, well, to put it simply, is how many people across the country or provincially are unemployed. So typically higher unemployment rates mean people can't afford to either continue paying their mortgage, and therefore they need to sell, or they go into foreclosure, or they can't qualify for a new mortgage, meaning that they're not out there to purchase, which, to create a long story short, means that inventory levels are high because either more property is coming to market, and demand levels are low because there's not as many people out there buying. So the effect that that has on the real estate market, this is just any market, not just Vancouver, but if the demand is low and the inventory is high, that means there's more pressure on prices to come down because the demand is not being eaten up. And so the question is now, is that going to happen? We'll touch on this on another couple of points. And will the supply increase as unemployment rates come out and get released, and obviously people start hitting their thresholds? Or is that current unemployment rate, which in BC is 10.2%, are those people actually in the buying pool? As in, were they people who were looking to buy prior to the pandemic, or were they not in the market at all and they're low income, possibly part-time, and they weren't even looking to buy or sell in the first place anyway? The latter being that they won't have that much of a effect on our market, obviously the former being that they will.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with that topic, which is a big one right now, especially with all this COVID talk and all the repercussions of COVID, is the employment rate is always going to be above 0. Mm-hmm. There are always people that aren't going to be working. So the employment rate in general, in my opinion, is that big, whatever bulk number that is irrelevant. Breaking that down is who is unemployed.
Yeah.
What level, what sector, what age group of the market is unemployed? What income brackets are unemployed? And they're not overly, I don't know how they get those extreme details. There are some charts I've seen that break it down to sector, but I think that is what people need to focus on there. Not the unemployment rate 10%, that's bad, real estate's gonna crumble. I think it's who's unemployed, are they real estate applicable people that will actually reflect their unemployment into the real estate market. And
yeah, so to dumb it down, essentially our unemployment rate in BC right now is 10.2%. The argument on one side is 10.2% is higher year over year than we were last year, and so there's going to be more people who are needing to sell their property and less people who are going to be able to buy. The argument against that, to Jay's point, is that 10.2% does not include people who are actively on the market and looking to buy or sell in the first place anyway. The other argument is since COVID, month over month, we have seen a continuous decrease to those numbers as well. And again, only time will tell over the next few months what that looks like. So Jay, maybe you can enlighten us onto point number 2, which is the mortgage deferrals.
Point number 2, the mortgage deferrals. So people had the option at the beginning of the pandemic to defer their mortgage, which was essentially put payments on hold. Your interest will still accumulate, but your payments could be put on hold for 6 months. September was the first month back to normal, so you now have to pay.
Have to pay. You can't defer any longer.
Correct. So at this point, to my knowledge, they haven't discussed going back on any deferral plans. I talked to a friend in Australia yesterday. They've got deferrals till March next year.
Oh, close.
They've got given 12 months of deferrals. This grass is always greener down there. But yeah, so that's in a nutshell what that means. So again, a big point of reference to the market and where we are possibly headed in the next handful of months is, do the people that can now no longer defer, have to sell?
Yeah.
Because they, back to your point, lost their jobs, and now they don't have the flexibility to defer anymore. And again, is that going to put inventory into the market, bringing the market down? My opinion on that is, again, we don't know yet, at least, and I don't know if we ever will, who the people that deferred their mortgage was. 7 to 11% of BC mortgages were deferred.
Yeah, which to put that in the grand scheme of things, Alberta was, I think, highest with Quebec at 21%. So that's where we were on the scale. We were one of the lowest.
Exactly. So we were the lowest to defer, but how many of those people had to defer? That we don't know.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who deferred just because they had the flexibility.
What if?
Why not? What if X, Y, or Z happens? This is a safety net that I'm going to take. So they didn't defer because of mandatory, I'm not making any money reasons, and there was no, I lost my job prerequisite for deferring. So anyone could have. So I think, again, the deferral equation is a valid one, but again, just taking it as, well, people can't defer anymore, so there's going to be a correction because of that is not realistic. We need to know who had to defer.
Yeah.
That now cannot, because those are the people only that will be adding to the market.
So again, the argument then becomes the mortgage deferrals have stopped. So are there now a lot of people who need to put their properties on the market? Again, flooding the supply, but bringing down the demand, which, as we said in point 1, puts pressure on prices to come down.
Point 3. Let's move.
So then point 3, I'm actually going to touch on it even though it was discussed later, but interest rates.
That's not point 3.
So that's why I'm bringing point 4 to point 3, because point 4 will tie into this. So interest rates, as everybody knows, whenever you take out a mortgage, there is a certain level of interest. A lot of people are aware of the stress test, essentially meaning that you have to qualify for the 2% more than you're actually applying for. So if you're looking to borrow $1 million at 3%, you actually need to qualify for $1 million at 5%. Naturally, when that number comes down, as by the Bank of Canada, and it becomes cheaper to borrow money, it's a lot easier to qualify even with a stress test, because essentially you're qualifying for lower numbers. So again, what are the Bank of Canada going to do with interest rates? It's very low right now. It's very cheap in the grand scheme of things to borrow money. So typically that helps the real estate market, which I think it has done over the time quite substantially. So is that going to continue to come down further? If it comes down further, then essentially it's going to make it a lot more accessible to potential buyers. If it goes up again, or it goes higher, I should say, then it's not so easy, which again decreases the demand because not as many people can qualify for the mortgages.
I still think it's a smart bet to go variable. I think it has been for the last decade, and I still think it's a smart. I would take that risk.
We'll touch on that on another video. But point 4,
which was point 3 before you just jumped that around, is
just living on the edge.
Apparently, the market is hot and the market is not. So what we mean by that, again, we've touched on this in the past, looking at the big overall numbers of Greater Vancouver, which we never like to do because it's not really any sort of remote micro perspective, which anyone that owns or wants to buy is actually looking for. There's some markets that are very hot right now and some that are very not right now. So the numbers you're looking into, make sure they're micro market, micro neighborhood, and that's how you have to look at it.
And to put that into perspective, downtown we're actually at I think a 6-year high in inventory levels. If you're speaking to somebody looking for a single family detached home and on the east side or west side, it's a completely different story, and it's multiple offers gone in a day.
6-year lows I've heard.
Subject free, so substantially different. And this is why I wanted to move this to point 4, because depending on what happens with points 1, 2, and 3 will have different impacts on where it is that you're looking in the market. If the unemployment rate does take a turn for the worst and people start listing their property, and that happens more so downtown where we're already at extremely high levels of inventory, and even more inventory coming to market is only going to put more pressure on that. If it happens on, say, the east side and there's more inventory coming to market, then that demand is already extremely high, so it's likely that it will get swallowed up. And so that's why I wanted to bring it to the next point, because it's very important to know where you're buying and know what the climate of where you're buying in particular looks like right now. And then on to our 5th point, the R word, recession.
Ye old recession.
Yeah. Ye old recession. So recession is defined as a decrease in GDP over a specified period of time, which is typically 2 quarters, so 6 months. Arguably, on one side, we're currently in a recession right now. I know some experts will say that we're not, because it's kind of a fake one because of COVID and the way that the economy is rebounding and so on and so forth. But the thing is with a recession is we don't lose too much sleep on it. And the reason being, it doesn't hit the market all of a sudden. Real estate, it does not react all of a sudden. And to be honest, if you keep predicting it year over year over year, eventually you're going to get it right.
Of course there's going to be one. Is it now? Any of the reports that I've looked into are stating we were, again, back in March, April, just based on everything. And again, depending who you listen to, like on the first point, there's the traditional term of recession, and then there's kind of these hybrid terms of recession, which incorporate job loss. Of course, this has had a lot of talk on that, and the unemployment. The GDP, which is the traditional, a lot of people kind of microing down that traditional 6 months to 2 quarters down. This time, at least from what I've read, based on Corona numbers, we're in a recession right now. Well, we are, but like you said, I don't believe it's a true healthy economy running until it isn't healthy anymore. It's kind of been hit, slapped us in the face because everyone got halted due to the government, what they chose to do, which is fine, but it's not a real one. And I think, again, the tagline recession is a big word that scares a lot of people, but you have to look, again, one level below to how it's going to affect the real estate market. In the US, 2008, recession was the big tagline, but obviously the banks tightened because there was a circumstance and credit was not extended, yada, 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 and that's what hurt the real estate market.
So there's a whole cataclysm.
Dig down into that, and we see that word starting to get thrown around a lot, and it scares a lot of people. But I think, again, like everything, don't headline read into what they're saying, and read into how this actually will affect.
I mean, economists predict recessions and they get it wrong 9 times out of 10. So even if you're in that space, it's very, very hard to predict. So it's not something that we should say rely on or base your decisions on until it's actually here, it's in effect, and the real estate market is going to react to it, in short. But that pretty much sums us up. That sums up the 5 what-ifs at the moment in real estate. Hopefully it sheds some light on it for you guys. Don't forget, you can always listen to our podcast on your commute as well. And we also put our blogs up every week on the website.
So like and subscribe.
So like and subscribe, please do. Comment below. And we will see you next week, guys. Thank you.